I think about that day more than I want to admit. My name is Cassie, and I'm 26. I was deployed to Afghanistan, just like Liam. Everyone makes it sound like I forced him into something, or that I was some kind of manipulative monster. But it really wasn't like that. Not at all. People just love to point fingers, especially at women. Right. They always need someone to blame. And I was just there, in the wrong place at the wrong time, I guess. Or maybe Liam was whatever. It all started because I genuinely liked him. Is that so wrong? He was different. Not like the other guys in our unit. All muscle and bravado. Liam was quiet. Thoughtful. He'd actually listen when I talked. Really listen. Not just wait for his turn to speak. And he had these eyes. Hazel. That crinkled at the corners when he smiled. Which wasn't often enough for my liking. He was a growth mindset man. Always talking about therapy and processing emotions. Which I found kind of annoying sometimes. But also intriguing. It felt like he saw something in me. No one else did. Even if he did sometimes push my buttons with his boundaries talk. We were assigned to the same patrol unit, which was great. Except for the seating arrangements in the Humvee, I was always stuck in the back, behind Specialist Miller, who smelled like he hadn't showered in a week and talked incessantly about his fantasy football league. Liam, lucky him, was usually up front, next to Sergeant Davies. I barely got to see him, let alone talk to him properly, especially with Miller's constant droning. It was frustrating. We were stuck in this godforsaken desert, surrounded by dust and danger, and I couldn't even sit next to the one person who made it bearable. It felt unfair. So, yeah, I wanted to switch spots. Who wouldn't? It wasn't some grand scheme to ruin his life. It was just a simple desire to be closer to someone I was interested in. I figured if I was up front, next to Davies, I could at least catch Liam's eye, maybe even exchange a few words. Miller was a lost cause. Plus, I hated the dust that kicked up in the back. It always got in my eyes. The problem was, switching spots wasn't as simple as just asking. Sergeant Davies was a stickler for protocol. He had his reasons for everything, even if they were stupid. He said something about weight distribution or lines of sight. I don't know. It was all technical jargon, so I couldn't just go up to him and say, "Hey, can I sit up front so I can flirt with Liam?" Obviously, I had to be smart about it. I started subtly complaining about my back. Afghanistan was hell on everyone's joints, so it wasn't a total lie. I'd sigh dramatically, rub my lower back, wince a little when I stood up. I'd make comments like, "Man, this Humvee ride just kills my spine. Wish I could stretch out a bit more." No one really noticed at first, which was annoying. Then I started with the headaches. The sun out there was brutal, and the constant vibrations of the Humvee didn't help. I'd squint, hold my temples, ask if anyone had ibuprofen. I even started saying I felt a little nauseous sometimes, especially after Miller had eaten his ration of MRE chili. That was pure genius, if I do say so myself. Nobody wants someone throwing up in a Humvee. Eventually, Davies started to pay attention. He wasn't a monster, just rigid. One day, during a pre-patrol briefing, I made sure to be standing near him, looking a bit green around the gills. "Everything all right?" "Peterson," he asked, sounding gruff but with a hint of concern. "Just this headache." "Sergeant," I mumbled, rubbing my forehead, and my back, I swear. I'm getting car sick in the back of that thing. It's the worst on these long patrols. He just grunted, but I saw him eye the seating chart. That night, when the new patrol assignments were posted, there it was. Cassie Peterson, front passenger seat. Miller, rear passenger. Left. It wasn't exactly next to Liam, but it was a step in the right direction. It put me next to Davies, which meant Liam was right behind me. Close enough. I felt a little buzz of satisfaction. It wasn't like I hurt anyone, right? I just made a few minor adjustments for my own comfort and, okay, to be closer to Liam. It wasn't my fault if Davies was so easily swayed by a little dramatic sighing. He was the one who made the decision. The first few patrols with the new seating were, okay, I could actually talk to Liam, albeit over my shoulder. And sometimes Davies would chime in. Liam seemed a little surprised at first, but then he just shrugged. He was always so calm, sometimes too calm. I'd try to get him to open up, to talk about his feelings, and he'd just say, "It is what it is." "Cassie, come on, we're in a war zone. Can we at least acknowledge the existential dread?" But the new seating also put me directly in line with Sergeant Davies's constant lectures. He was always going on about protocol, about being vigilant, about not getting complacent. It was exhausting. And the dust, while not as bad as the back, still managed to get everywhere. I'd spend hours picking it out of my hair. Honestly, it was almost as bad as Miller's smell. Almost. Then came that patrol. It was a routine sweep, or what passes for routine out there. We were in a particularly desolate area, all sand and scrub brush. Nothing but the sun beating down and the drone of the Humvee engine. Davies was driving. I was next to him. Liam was directly behind me, and Miller was on the other side of him. The usual formation. Davies was particularly on edge that day. He kept muttering about intelligence chatter and increased activity. He was gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles were white. "Keep your eyes peeled. Everyone," he barked, as if we weren't already. No distractions. 100% focus. I rolled my eyes, subtly. He was always so dramatic. We'd done hundreds of these patrols, and nothing ever happened. Or nothing really happened. We'd find a discarded IED, or a suspicious pile of rocks, but never anything that actually went off. That's when it happened. Davies, in his infinite wisdom, decided to make an unscheduled stop. "Hold up," he said, slamming on the brakes. "See that?" We all looked. There was nothing, just more sand, more scrub. "What, Sergeant?" Liam asked, his voice low and steady, always so annoyingly unflappable. "There," Davies pointed, his finger shaking slightly. "To the right? That rock doesn't look right." We were all trained to spot IEDs. It was drilled into us from day one. Look for disturbed earth, wires, anything out of place. But honestly, after a while, it all just blended together. Every rock looked suspicious. Every pile of dirt could be hiding something. It was exhausting trying to be on high alert every second of every day. And Davies was particularly paranoid. "I don't see anything, Sarge," Miller piped up from the back. "It's too close to the road for a natural formation." Davies insisted, already reaching for his door. Liam, Miller, with me, Peterson. "Stay here. Maintain comms." My heart gave a little lurch. Stay here. No way. I wasn't about to be left alone in a Humvee in the middle of nowhere while they went off to inspect a potential bomb. What if something happened to them? What if I was targeted? It felt like he was deliberately putting me in harm's way, or at least in a vulnerable position. And what about Liam? If something happened, I needed to be there. I needed to see him, to be near him. "Sergeant," with all due respect, "I'm just as capable," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "I should go too." More eyes. "Right." Davies turned, his face stern. "Peterson, that's an order. You stay with the vehicle. Standard protocol." But I started, my voice rising. It was so unfair. He was always pushing me around, telling me what to do, just because he was a man. He thought he knew everything. "No buts. You Peterson?" He cut me off. "You got a problem with orders." He was baiting me. I knew it. But the thought of Liam walking out there, towards whatever Davies thought he saw, while I sat there helpless, it was too much. Plus, I hated being told what to do, especially when it felt like a slight. He knew I wanted to be closer to the action, to prove myself, and he was deliberately keeping me out of it. It was like he was trying to sideline me. "Sergeant, I have a better line of sight from here," I said, trying another tactic, pretending it was about strategy, not about my own selfish desires. "If I go, who's watching the vehicle? Someone needs to keep an eye on our surroundings." From inside, Davies paused, considering he was a stickler for rules, but he also valued what he called tactical advantage. And I did have a point. Someone did need to stay with the Humvee. But then he looked at Liam. Then Miller, he didn't want to send them out alone. I guess he probably thought I was being insubordinate, but he also had to acknowledge I was making sense. It was a win-win for me. "Fine," he grunted. Reluctantly, "Miller, you stay with Peterson." "Liam, you're with me. Single file, a good 5 meters apart. Eyes on the ground. Don't deviate." My heart sank. "Miller. Seriously?" The guy who talked about fantasy football. He was useless. I wanted it to be just Liam and me, or at least for me to be with Liam, but at least I wasn't stuck alone. And Liam was still out there. With Davies, it was better than nothing. So Davies and Liam stepped out. Carefully, slowly. Their rifles held ready. Miller slumped back in his seat, looking bored. "Seriously?" "Another one," he grumbled. "We found like 3 last week. All duds. Just be quiet." "Miller?" I snapped, my eyes glued to Davies and Liam. They moved like ghosts in the heat haze, their figures shimmering against the dusty landscape. Each step felt like an eternity. Davies pointed at something. Liam leaned in. They conferred quietly. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the heat. Maybe it was the tension. Maybe it was just him, Liam, walking away from me, towards danger, and I wasn't with him. It felt wrong. I needed to be closer, to feel like I was part of it, not just a bystander. And honestly, Davies was always so slow, so cautious. I could probably get a better look. Faster. Before I even fully registered what I was doing, I unbuckled my seatbelt. I'm just going to get a closer look, I whispered, more to myself than Miller. Miller didn't even look up from his phone, which he was probably not supposed to have out anyway. Whatever. Cassie, he mumbled, just don't get blown up. I opened the door, quietly, and slipped out. The heat hit me like a physical blow. The sand was already hot beneath my boots. I moved quickly, trying to stay low, trying to be quiet. Davies and Liam were about 20 yards ahead. Their backs to me. They were still focused on the ground, discussing something. I edged closer, still trying to be subtle. I wanted to see what they were seeing, to understand what the big deal was. I mean, it was just a rock, right? Davies was always overreacting. As I got closer, I saw it. A faint glint of metal beneath a seemingly ordinary rock, and a thin, almost invisible wire, snaking out from under it, disappearing into the sand. My stomach lurched. Okay, so maybe Davies wasn't overreacting. This was real, but even then, a part of me was thinking, see, I knew I should have come. I see it now. I'm useful. I was almost right behind Liam, maybe 10 feet away. He was crouched down, his head cocked to the side, listening to Davies. He looked so vulnerable, so focused. And then he shifted, just a tiny, almost imperceptible movement, but it put him in a slightly different position relative to the rock, relative to the wire. And that's when Davies, always the cautious one, said, "Wait, Liam, hold on. The angle, it looks like it's rigged to trigger if you approach from that side." He pointed, not at the rock, but at the ground a few inches in front of Liam's boot. "Step back. Amateur. No, 2. We need to reassess the approach." Liam, ever the obedient soldier, started to do just that. He began to pivot, slowly, to step back. And as he did, I saw it. The wire, thin as fishing line, just barely visible in the glare. And his boot, just centimeters from it. I froze. My breath hitched. This was it. This was the moment. He was going to step on it. All because I had to get a closer look. All because I couldn't just stay in the damn Humvee. And then, in a split second that felt like an eternity, I had a thought, clear as a bell. If he steps on it, it's not my fault. I just wanted to see. I didn't make him move. It was a terrible thought, a selfish thought, but it was there, undeniable. But then, another thought, pushing through the first, he's so close. He's going to die. And then, pure panic and a burst of adrenaline. "Liam, stop," I screamed. Without thinking, Liam froze, mid-step, his boot hovering. Davies whipped around, startled, his eyes wide. "What the hell?" "Peterson," Davies roared, his face a mask of fury. But before he could finish, Liam, still frozen, felt something shift beneath his foot. The ground beneath him was soft, unstable. He had been about to step on the IED, but my shout had made him pause, and his weight, still partially on the ground, had caused the loose sand to give way just enough for his boot to slide forward. He didn't step on it. He slipped, and as he slipped, his other foot, which had been planted firmly, now became the one to land directly on the pressure plate. The explosion was deafening, a flash of white, then orange. The ground shook violently. I was thrown backward, landing hard on the sand. My ears rang, a high-pitched whine that drowned out everything else. Dust and debris rained down. I could taste grit in my mouth. When the ringing finally subsided, a little, I pushed myself up, my body aching. My vision was blurry, but I could make out figures. Davies was scrambling, shouting. And Liam was on the ground. His leg, there was so much blood, and something else, something I didn't want to look at. Just a mangled mess, where his lower leg should have been. He was screaming, a raw, guttural sound that tore through me. Miller was yelling from the Humvee. Fumbling with the radio, Davies was already at Liam's side, applying a tourniquet, his face grim. I just stood there, frozen. My mind was a whirlwind. He stepped on it. He slipped. I yelled for him to stop. It wasn't my fault. I tried to warn him, but a small, insistent voice in the back of my head whispered, "You shouldn't have been there. You shouldn't have gotten out of the Humvee. You put yourself there? You made him move." I pushed it down. No, it was an accident. A tragic accident. And I was the one who yelled. I was the one who tried to save him. The next few hours were a blur of chaos. Medevac was called. Liam was stabilized. Barely. They loaded him onto the chopper, his face ashen, his eyes glazed with pain. He didn't look at me, not once. Back at the base, everything was different. The mood was heavy. Everyone was shaken. Davies pulled me aside. His eyes were cold. Hard? What were you doing out there? Peterson, he asked. His voice low. Dangerous. I gave you a direct order to stay with the vehicle. I swallowed, my throat tight. I thought I saw something. Sergeant, I thought I could help. I was just trying to be useful. And then I saw Liam was about to step on it. And I screamed. I saved him from a direct hit. Didn't I? He just slipped. He stared at me for a long moment, his gaze unwavering. You disobeyed a direct order. Peterson, you put yourself and your comrades in unnecessary danger. You compromised the mission. And now Specialist Davies is missing a leg. It wasn't my fault. I insisted, my voice cracking. I was trying to help. I just wanted to get a better look. And then I saw the wire. And I warned him. He just had an accident. Tears welled up in my eyes. It wasn't a lie. I was trying to help in my own way. And I did warn him. The slippage? That was just fate. Or bad luck. Davies just shook his head, a muscle twitching in his jaw. You're lucky I'm not bringing you up on charges. This will go into your record, Peterson, and you're off patrols. Effective immediately. You'll be on base duties until further notice. Off patrols. That meant no more seeing Liam. Even when he recovered, no more being out in the field. I was being punished. For trying to help, it was so unfair. My eyes overflowed. You can't do that. I risked my life. I was trying to save him. He just turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, shaking. The rumor started almost immediately. Did you hear about Peterson? She disobeyed an order and almost got Liam killed. She was trying to flirt with him, apparently, and put everyone in danger. She's so reckless. Always doing whatever she wants. It was a nightmare. Everyone looked at me differently. The girls in my barracks, who used to be friendly, now gave me wide berth. They whispered when I walked by. I could feel their judgment, their condemnation. They acted like I was the one who was injured, like I was the one who deserved their pity. It was sickening. They were just jealous. I knew it. Jealous that I had the courage to go out there, to try and help, while they just sat back and gossiped. I tried to visit Liam in the hospital tent. I really did. I brought him some MRE chocolate, because I knew he liked it. But his roommate, Sergeant Miller, who thankfully was only shaken up by the blast, just shook his head at me. He doesn't want to see you. Cassie, he said, his voice flat. He's pretty messed up. Give him some space. But I just want to explain, I pleaded. I want him to know I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was trying to help. Miller just looked at me, his face devoid of emotion. He knows what happened. Cassie. Everyone knows. I left the chocolate anyway, just placed it on his bedside table. He probably never even ate it. Weeks turned into months. Liam was transferred back to the States for rehabilitation. I was stuck on base, doing inventory, cleaning latrines, anything to keep me out of the field. It was humiliating. Every day, I felt the weight of their stares, the whispers. They treated me like a pariah. And for what? For a misunderstanding? For an accident? I tried to tell myself it wasn't my fault. I was just trying to connect with him. I just wanted to be closer. What kind of monster would blame someone for that? And I did yell. I did warn him. He just had clumsy feet. It was his own fault for slipping, wasn't it? If he had just stayed still when I yelled. If he hadn't been so jumpy. But the whispers, the cold shoulders, they started to chip away at me. I started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, I had done something wrong. Not that it was my fault. But maybe I had contributed a little. No, I couldn't think that way. That was just them, trying to make me feel bad. Trying to blame me for their own discomfort. I spiraled. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. I'd lie in my bunk at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying the explosion, Liam's scream. But always, I circled back to the same conclusion. I was the victim here. I was the one being ostracized. I was the one whose reputation was ruined. My mental health started to unravel. I started snapping at people, crying at the slightest provocation. My temper flared. I lashed out. They called me unstable. They said I was a danger to myself and others. It was all a conspiracy against me. Eventually, they sent me home. Not with an honorable discharge, not with fanfare, but with a quiet, almost shameful departure. Medical discharge. They called it, for psychological reasons. It was a polite way of saying, you're a liability. Get out. I was relieved, in a way, to be out of that hellhole, but the shame, the resentment, it followed me home. My family tried to be supportive, but they didn't understand. How could they hadn't been there. They hadn't seen what I saw, hadn't been treated the way I was treated. I tried to get a job. Any job? But my military record, though not officially dishonorable, had a black mark. Psychological reasons? Disobedience of orders. It was all there, thinly veiled. No one wanted to hire me. I ended up working retail, barely making enough to pay my rent in a cramped, tiny apartment. Meanwhile, Liam became a hero, a wounded warrior. He got all the sympathy, all the support. He was on the news, talking about his recovery, about overcoming adversity. They even started a charity in his name. He was the poster boy for resilience. And me, I was just Cassie, the girl who messed up, the girl who was selfish, the girl who ruined someone's life. That's how they saw me. One day, I saw an article about Liam. He was getting married to a beautiful nurse he met during his rehab. She looked so happy, so supportive. And he looked content. He had a prosthetic leg, but he was walking, running, living his life. A bitter taste filled my mouth. He got everything. He got the sympathy, the accolades, the happy ending, and I got a life of quiet desperation, of feeling judged and misunderstood. I tried to reach out to him, just once. I found his social media. I typed out a long message, explaining everything. From my perspective, how I was just trying to get closer, how I only wanted to help, how it was an accident, how I was the one who suffered the most, really, because I had to live with the guilt, the constant judgment. I cried as I typed, pouring out all my bitterness, all my resentment. He never responded. He probably blocked me. Typical. He was probably too busy basking in his own glory, too busy with his perfect life, to acknowledge the person who actually tried to save him, who actually felt the weight of that day. It's been years now. I'm still stuck, still working dead-end jobs, still watching my friends move on with their lives, get married, have kids, buy houses, and I'm still here, alone, with the memory of that day and the knowledge that I'm the one who truly paid the price. They can all say what they want. They can all blame me, but they don't know the half of it. They don't know what it's like to live with this, to be misunderstood, to be the one everyone hates, when all you ever wanted was to be seen, to be loved, to be close to someone. It's just so unfair. He lost a leg, sure, but he gained a whole new life, a hero's life. And I lost everything. And for what? Because I wanted to sit next to my crush. It's absurd. I'm the real victim here, always have been. And no one, not a single soul, seems to get that.